What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big Johnny G, the two-gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming. Inside or outside, it's always right there. All right, so we are in the Halloween month. And I love this, my favorite holiday, my favorite month of all. It really is. And so I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about two things, the same thing, but I want to divide it up into two segments so I can really focus on what it is I want to talk about. There are a few board games based on horror movies. Yeah. I think two of the most recent that we've seen are Jaws, based on the classic movie, as well as another game for The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31, which is about the John Carpenter classic horror movie, and still to this day, one of my favorites. But what other horror movies could be, should be, a board game? Do you know of a movie? Do you have a favorite horror movie that you think would actually make a good, decent, or fun board game? Well, I've got two. And I want to talk about one of them right now. And that's based on a movie called Dead Alive. One of my favorite zombie films that have ever been made. It harkens back to the 80s. So it's been out for a while. It stands the test of time, I think. But I want to talk to you about it. Especially how I think Dead Alive could make an interesting board game. Bench looks empty. I think. Why don't we go find out? I'll see you all down at the bench. Dead Alive. You know, I think it was been renamed Brain Dead, Brain Damaged. I originally saw the movie under its original American release title of Dead Alive. Now, at the time this movie came out, and I was a little wrong in the intro. I said the late 80s, it was early 90s, 1992, 1993, I think it was. And it was directed by a little-known film director at that time by the name of Peter Jackson. So, real quick, this movie is about the love a young man has for his overbearing helicopter mother. In a nutshell, that's what it really comes down to. It's a boy's love for his mother and the lengths he will go. Maybe this should have started a new trend in horror films where instead of killing off teenagers, they killed off helicopter parents. But we weren't lucky enough to have that happen. Okay, so right off the bat, the first thing that I feel, if this was turned into a board game, the first thing I feel is that this, although it's a zombie game, it's really a resource management game. That's how I see it. And honestly, there's not a lot of zombie resource management games. I mean, if you want to count Abomination, Heir of Frankenstein, I mean, in a way, that's kind of like, Frankenstein's kind of, he's a golem, but he's kind of like a built zombie. I mean, you can kind of push the limits of the definition there. But no, there's very little, I can't think of one. If you can think of one, let me know, as I definitely want to play it. Put it in the comments. But I can't think of one zombie board game that's resource management. Now, although I think there's more than enough zombie games out there, this is different enough that it's piqued an interest in my mind. Now, besides resource management, I also see something else that I would call zoo management. Because you're managing things that you capture. And in this case, they're zombies. Because the first zombie is your mama. No, this isn't a joke. Really, the first zombie is your character's, the player's character's mother. I mean, not your real mother. I don't know her, so I can't say she's a zombie. But seriously, so that is the first person that became infected in the movie from the how's it pronounced? A Sumatran rat monkey. Some vicious evil creature whose bite causes zombies. So I definitely see this as a zoo management game, because the core of it is that the mother gets bitten first, and the hero, the player character, when you're running, wants to protect her still and hides her in the basement and locks her up. Now, during the course of the film, she escapes many times, causing most of the residents of the small town of Wellington to be zombified. And that's where I see the competitive nature of this game coming in. I see this game having event cards that the players are going to be having a hand of and playing against each other, or for themselves, if it's a good benefit for whatever their strategy is, how they're going for it. I think that one of the most prevalent cards in the event deck that players can keep getting their hands on is Mama Escapes, which she did a lot in the movie, which caused the creation of so many other zombies. Now, you're going to have to manage your mama. You're going to have to keep going out into the town and finding her, and collecting her. You don't know where she is, you don't know where she went. But you're also going to have to track down anyone she bit, so you can take them back to your Victorian mansion and lock them in the basement with Mama and the other zombies. Now, part of the resource management of this game, I also see, besides managing the zombies, would be managing things you need to keep them locked up. You know, like managing the doors so that they stay built and not broken down by the zombies. But also a big part in the movie was how the zombies were being kept, for lack of a better term, calm. And that was through the heavy use of animal tranquilizers. I see that also being an important part of the resource of the game. If you have a certain amount of animal tranks, then you can cancel out cards like Mama Escapes. But, you know, I also see this being a combination game. Not just in the cards that you collect and that you play, but I also see some dice chucking in this game, where some of the event cards, in order to overcome them, you're going to need certain dice, and you're going to need to make certain rolls on these dice. Dice set collection meets card collection. You know, sort of like the way IDW games handled the Planet of the Apes game, using a combination of the both. Now, the board itself, I definitely see as a double-sided board. I see it like the first part of the game is going to be played in the town of Wellington. There'll be a spot in the game where your Victorian mansion is that you're going to be basing all your movements out from. But the game is going to have a board that is depicting the town of Wellington and all the hot spots in it from the movie, such as the Wellington Zoo, where Mama first got bit by the Sumatran rat. I have a hard time spitting that out. The Sumatran rat monkey. Because I see this as a victory point game, at least kind of in part, I think that the Wellington side of the board would have a victory point tracker running around the edge of it. But that's not a victory point tracker to win the game. No, let's change things up a little bit. How about when you get to the certain number, that ends the first act of the movie. Then you flip the board over, and you have the mansion. The inside of the mansion for Act 2. And no victory points on this side. Now, the mansion is going to have certain rooms set up, designated, that you are going to be able to fill with zombies. But each room is going to have a corresponding number. And that number would designate how many zombies you can stuff in there. At least safely, without them easily breaking it down or having to chop them up into smaller pieces to fit them in. Come on, board game is based on a gore film. Oh, yeah. About the points system. If you have successfully kept Mama alive, then when you get to your certain victory points and you flip the board, that's going to count as double when you add up your Act 1 victory points with anything you score for the completely different system that's going to be for Act 2 inside the mansion. Minis. I definitely see this game having some minis. It's going to be fun to see the different zombie sculptures, of course. But the reason I say this is because, much like Cthulhu War, I do see the need of a giant mini. Just one for this game. Because at the end of the movie, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling anything here, but during an unwanted house party at the mansion, and a mix-up of animal tranks with animal stimulants, the zombies go crazy. And while they're going crazy, Mama goes mutant. She goes, and she ends up turning into this mutant monstrosity, a gigantic, huge proportion of a zombie. That would be the equivalent of a final boss fight. And it isn't until after dispatching the big giant zombie Mama mutant monstrosity, I can't even get all the words out to describe the large horrorness of her. I can't. It's disgusting. But after your final battle with her, where you get to use collected goods that you had made during the game, that you found during the game, especially the lawnmower, that's going to be very important. But not against Mama. There's going to be certain things in the game that's going to help you win at this point, but you have to have collected enough of them during the first act of the game, and if not, well, you can still beat Mama and win, but it's going to be very hard. And the very last thing about the very last battle that's going to take place in the mansion between you and giant mutant zombie Mama is the mansion is burning down. And that's going to constrain your time and add that much more stress right there at the end of the game. Because that house is going to be burning down fast. In fact, that would be a way to set a certain time limit on the second act itself. If it's only a certain amount of time before the gas mains break, sparks fly, and the fire starts. So that's my take. That's my take on what I consider a great movie, one of the best zombie films ever made, and how that can be incorporated into a board game while making it different from the 90% or more of zombie board games that all seem so similar that are flooding the market. Dead Alive. And if you haven't seen the movie, this is the right time of the year to do it. Go check it out. What horror films that you enjoyed do you think would make a good board game? Why don't you put it down there and start a discussion? And also, what's the best horror board game you've ever played, and why? What made it so good? I definitely want to start a conversation on this. So let's get the comments going, everyone. Well, thank you. I want to thank everyone for going over to the Two Gun Pixie Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much for going and checking out what we're doing over there. And it's very cool when you go over and visit us there. Thank you so much, everyone. Now, we have a Zazzle store. We have a Zazzle store, print on demand, nerdy, geeky, RPG-inspired designs on hats, shirts, a cooking apron, stickers, buttons, mugs, steins, sandals, I think. Oh, even a belt buckle. I want to thank everyone that's been going over and checking that out. I know there's been a couple of sales, so to those of you that purchased something, one of our merch items from the Two Gun Pixie Zazzle store, a big thank you very much. Let us know what you got and what you think of it. But most of all, everyone, thank you so much for joining us here at the Two Gun Pixie YouTube channel. You watch our videos and you subscribe, you like, you comment, and when we're lucky, when any content creator is lucky. You share a video with the rest of the world to try to get us a little more attention. That's the best. That is the best. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm your buddy Big Johnny G for Two Gun Pixie Presents Legendary Gaming. And my friends, I am out of here.